I am Jeff Horner. This is Jeff's take on the Torah. I am not a Torah scholar. I am a guy who likes to read the Torah, and this is my opinion and some sages' opinions that I have delved into on the Torah. Tonight we will do Trumah, offering. And it's a very interesting portion because it talks about the making of the tabernacle. Now that could be kind of boring, but let me tell you why it's interesting. Let's go back a week to Mishpatim and go to the end of chapter 24, starting with verse 9. I'm going to read verse 9 through 18. Then Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 elders of Israel ascended, and they saw the God of Israel. Under his feet there was the likeness of a pavement of sapphire, like the very sky for purity. Yet he did not raise his hand against the leaders of the Israelites. They beheld God, and they ate and drank. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and wait there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the teachings and commandments which I have inscribed to instruct them." So Moses and his attendant Joshua arose, and Moses attended the mountain of God. To the elders he had said, "Wait here for us until we return to you. You have Aaron and Hur with you. Let anyone who has a legal matter approach them." When Moses had ascended the mountain, the cloud covered the mountain. The presence of the Lord abode on Mount Sinai, and the cloud hid it for 6 days. On the 7th day he called to Moses from the midst of the cloud. Now the presence of the Lord appeared in the sight of the Israelites as a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Moses went inside the cloud and ascended the mountain. And Moses remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Why do I bring that up? That's the end of last week's portion. It is fire and God and the Israelites seeing him and the 70 elders seeing him and not dying and lots of big time stuff. And then we go right into this week's portion. And this week's portion goes right into the weeds, into the nitty-gritty of making something, of engineering. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts, and you shall accept gifts for them, gold, silver, and copper, blue, purple, and crimson yarns, fine linen, goat's hair, tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and Arcadia wood." Two things about this. Number one, where did they get dolphin skins? I was surprised. It turns out, after some research, that dolphins actually live in the Red Sea. And Bedouins to this day use them to make shoes. Didn't know that. So that was quite interesting to me that they would say use the word dolphins. In another commentary I saw, they used the word badger skins. Don't really understand the difference. The gifts that you shall accept from them: gold, silver, copper, 3, blue, purple, and crimson yarn, 6, fine linen, 7, goat's hair, 8, tanned ram skins, 9, dolphin skins, 10, Arcadia wood, 11, oil for lighting, 12, spices for the anointing oil. 13 things. According again to different sages, this is to show that the Lord is doing measure for measure against the fact that he brought them out of Egypt, did 10 plagues, brought them across the Red Sea, gave them manna and quail. 13 for 13. Lapis lazuli and other stones for setting, for the ephod and for the breastplate. Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Exactly as I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings, so shall you make it. All of the sages that I read agreed that God doesn't really need a place to stay. The point of the matter is God, these are people who were slaves, we're still dealing with 11 weeks ago, but they were slaves. They now have seen the Lord. The Lord is appeared to them in the last portion as fire on the mountain and smoke and all kinds of ethereal things and ram's horns and earth shaking. But they are still traveling. They are still in the wilderness. So this is as much for them to remember the Lord as it is for dwell among them. So therefore, the objective of building this, there's many objectives of building this, but one of them is so that they will always have their, within sight, within line of sight, something that reminds them that they are the people of the Lord. 25, chapter 10. Chapter 25, verse 10. They shall make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold. Overlay it inside and out, and make upon it a gold molding round about. Cast 4 gold rings for it to be attached to its 4 feet, 2 rings on one of its side walls and 2 rings on the other. Make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Then insert the poles into rings on the side walls of the ark for carrying the ark. The poles shall remain in the rings of the ark. They shall not be removed from it. And deposit in the ark the tablets of the pact which I will give you. So, God has not given Moses the tablets yet, but again, he's made something ahead of time so that the tablets can be stored. Just like he had Moses appoint the judges before they heard about the 10 Commandments. So there is a whole group of people that talk about the fact that God makes the cure the answer before he asks the question, so that they will have, in this instance, a place to put the tablets even before they get the tablets. Chapter 25, verse 17. You shall make a cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide. Make 2 cherubim of gold. Make them of hammered work at 2 ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub at one end and the other cherub at the other end. Of one piece with the cover shall you make the cherubim at its 2 ends. The cherubim shall have their wings spread out above, shielding the cover with their wings. They shall confront each other, the faces of the cherubim being turned toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark, after depositing inside the ark the pact that I will give you. There I will meet with you, and I will impart to you from above the cover, from between the 2 cherubim that are on top of the ark of the pact, all that I will command you concerning the Israelite people. So we're going to make a box. Cubit by cubit. It's going to be wood covered in gold, inlaid in gold. And you're going to keep the ark in there. An interesting little piece about this. We are also keeping the poles in the ark. The entire rest of this talks about something that can be knocked down and moved. But the ark itself is ready to go at any given time. The poles are to stay there, you pick it up and you move it. I think about this in terms of getting ready for, God forbid, if you had a fire in your house. What do you grab? Everyone who owns a home at some point does a fire drill of where you're going to meet, of how your family is going to get out, of different things. And what do you grab? Because you have to grab something quickly. We have a blue box that holds our papers. Well, the ark is the thing you grab quickly so that you can pick it up and get out. 25, chapter 25, number 19. Make 1 cherub at one end and the other. Nope. I read that. 23. You shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long, 1 cubit wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay with pure gold and make a gold molding around it. Make a rim of a hand's breadth around it, and make a gold molding for its rim round about. Make 4 gold rings for it, and attach the rings to the 4 corners at its 4 legs. The rings shall be next to the rim, as holders for poles to carry the table. Make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. And by these tables shall be carried. The table shall be carried. Make its bowls, ladles, jars, and jugs with which to offer libations. Make them of pure gold. And on the table you shall set the bread of display to be before me always. You shall make a lampstand of pure gold. The lampstand shall be made of hammered work. Its base and its shaft, its cups, calyxes, and petals shall be of one piece. 6 branches shall issue from its side, 3 branches from one side of the lampstand, and 3 branches from the other side of the lampstand. On one branch there shall be 3 cups, shaped like almond blossoms, each with a calyx and petals. And on the next branch there shall be 3 cups, shaped like almond blossoms, each with calyx and petals, so that for all 6 branches issuing from the lampstand. And on the lampstand itself there shall be 4 cups, shaped like almond blossoms, each with calyx and petals, a calyx of one piece with it, and under a pair of branches, and a calyx of one piece with it under the second pair of branches, and a calyx of one piece with it under the last pair of branches. So for all 6 branches issuing from the lampstand. Their calyxes and their stems shall be of one piece with it, the whole of it a single hammered piece of pure gold. Make it 7 lamps. The lamps shall be so mounted as to give the light on its front side, and its tongs and fire pans of pure gold. It shall be made with all these furnishings out of a talent of pure gold. Note well and follow the patterns for them that are being shown to you on the mountain. So he's making a menorah. 7 calyxes, 7 stands. Chapter 26. I'm going to read most of this and then do the commentary. Chapter 26. As for the tabernacle, make it of 10 strips of cloth. Make them of fine twisted linen, of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, with a design of cherubim worked into them. The length of each cloth shall be 28 cubits, and the width of each cloth shall be 4 cubits. All of the cloths shall have the same measurements. 5 of the cloths shall be joined to one another, and the other 5 cloths shall be joined to one another. Make loops of blue wool on the edge of the outermost cloth of one set, and do likewise on the edge of the outermost cloth of the other set. Make 50 loops on the one cloth and 50 loops on the edge of the cloth of the other set, the loops to be opposite of one another. And make 50 gold clasps and couple the cloths to one another with the clasps so that the tabernacle becomes one whole. So you're going to make 10 strips of cloth and you're going to put them together into 5 and 5, and you're going to make a curtain. You shall then make cloths of goat hairs for a tent over the tabernacle. Make the cloths 11 in number. The length of each cloth shall be 30 cubits, and the width of each cloth shall be 4 cubits, and 11 cloths to have the same measurement. Join 5 of the cloths by themselves, and the other 6 cloths by themselves, and fold over the 6 cloths at the front of the tent. Make 50 loops on the edge of the outermost cloth of one set, and 50 loops at the edge of the cloth of the other set. Make 50 copper clasps, and fit the clasps into the loops, and couple the tent together so that it becomes one whole. As for the overlapping excess of the cloths of the tent, the extra half cloth shall overlap the back of the tabernacle, while the extra cubit at either end of each length of tent cloth shall hang down to the bottom of the 2 sides of the tabernacle and cover it. And make for the tent a covering of tanned ram skins and a covering of the dolphin skins above. So you're making a tent. You're making it out of different cloths because some of the inner tent is going to be of better material than of the outer tent. You shall make the planks of the tabernacle of acacia wood upright. The length of each plank shall be 10 cubits, and the width of each plank shall be 1.5 cubits. Each plank shall have 2 tenons, parallel to each other. Do the same with all the planks of the tabernacle. Of the planks of the tabernacle, make 20 planks on the south side. Make 40 silver sockets under the 20 planks, 2 sockets under one plank for its 2 tenons, and 2 sockets under each of the following planks for its 2 tenons. And for the other side wall of the tabernacle, one on the north side, 20 planks, with their 40 silver sockets, 2 2 sockets under one plank and 2 sockets under each of the following planks. And for the rear of the tabernacle to the west, make 6 planks, and make 2 planks for the corners of the tabernacle at the rear. They shall match at the bottom, and terminate alike at the top inside one ring. Thus shall it be with both of them. They shall form the 2 corners. Thus shall there be 8 planks with their sockets of silver, 16 sockets, 2 sockets under the first plank, and 2 sockets under each of the other planks. At this point, I gotta believe most people reading this, their eyes glaze over. And they go, what are you doing? They're building a house. When you build a house, you have to make it so that it fits together. Whether it's an erector set or connects or a Barbie home or a tabernacle or the home you live in. This is from Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. In painstaking detail and at great length, the construction of the Mishkan, the first collective house of worship of the Jewish people, is made. Precise instructions are given for each item, the tabernacle itself, the frames and drapes, and the various objects it contains, including their dimensions. So the example we read, make the tabernacle with 10 curtains of finely twisted linen in blue, purple, and scarlet yarn. We just read all that. And so on. But why do we need to know how big the tabernacle was? It did not function in perpetuity. Its primary use was during the wilderness years. Eventually it was replaced by the temple, an altogether larger and more magnificent structure. Why then is the eternal significance of the dimensions of this modest, portable construction? To put the question more sharply, is it not the very idea of a specific size for the home of the Shekinah, the divine presence, liable to mislead? A transcendent God cannot be contained in space. So no physical space, however large, is big enough. On the other hand, no space is too small. The Midrash states, when God said to Moses, make me a tabernacle, Moses said in amazement, the glory of the Holy One, blessed be He, fills heaven and earth. And yet He commands, make me a tabernacle? God replied, not as you think, do as I think. Not as you think, do I think. 20 boards on the north, 20 on the south, and 8 in the west are sufficient indeed. Indeed, I will descend and confine my presence even within 1 square cubit. So does it matter whether the tabernacle is large or small? Does it matter how big it is, how wide it is, of the different woods? Well, yes, it does. Why? It matters because when you have your home, you're proud of your home. When you build your home or when you move into a home that's already built, you want to have pride of ownership of what you have. So therefore, you're using all of these different products, gold, silver, copper, ram's yarn, all of these different things to make a structure that all the people will be proud of. That all the people, no matter what they give to this, because in the very beginning it says, have the Israelite people bring me gifts. What do you bring? So you can only bring what you have. You've just left Egypt 11 weeks ago. So what do you have? Well, I have the skins, and I have the cloth, and I have the gold, and I have the silver, and you find the wood out in the wilderness. You're in the trees. So you can only bring what you have. You have to now take pride in what you have. So everyone building together, you're now a people building a singular house. You're all working on it together. You're all bringing what you need to bring. You're all doing it at the same time. You're putting up sides. You're tanning hides. You're making colors. You're doing of yarn. You're doing all these different things. So you're all working together toward the common goal of this tabernacle, of which you will have the pride. This home of God is for you. It's for your worship. God doesn't particularly need the house. You need the house to give you a physical manifestation of your God. It's not an idol. It's the house that God dwells. It's the house that you can feel that God dwells, so that when you look at this house, it radiates onto you, so you can feel closer to God every day. So that when you look up and you see this, you can feel God's presence. So it's about the people making the house much more than God living in the house. Okay. Verse 31. You shall make a curtain of blue, purple, and crimson yards, and fine twisted linen. It shall have a design of cherubim worked into it. Hang it upon 4 posts of acacia wood overlaid with gold, and having hooks of gold set in the 4 sockets of silver. Hang the curtain under the clasps, and carry the ark of the pact there, behind the curtain, so that the curtain shall serve you as a partition between the holy and the holy of holies. Place the cover upon the ark of the pact of the Holy of Holies. Place the table outside of the curtain, and the lampstand by the south wall of the tabernacle opposite the table, which is to be placed on the north wall. You shall make a screen for the entrance of the tent, of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and fine twisted linen done in embroidery. Make 5 posts of acacia wood for the screen, and overlay them with gold, their hooks being of gold, and cast for them 5 sockets of copper. You shall make the altar of acacia wood. Chapter 27, number 1. You shall make the altar of acacia wood, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. The altar is to be square and 3 cubits high. Make its horns on the 4 corners, the horns to be of one piece with it, and overlay it with copper. Make the pails for removing its ashes, as well as the scrapers, basins, flesh hooks, and fire pans. Make all its utensils of copper. Make for it a grating of meshwork in copper, and on the mesh make 4 copper rings at its 4 corners. Set the mesh below, under the ledge of the altar, so that it extends to the middle of the altar. And make poles for the altar, poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with copper. The poles shall be inserted into the rings, so that the poles remain on 2 sides of the altar when it was carried. Make it hollow of boards, and you are shown on the mountain, so shall they be made. Why copper for an altar? I think it's because copper conducts heat, and gold does not. It's the altar. You're going to do sacrifices there. Silver does not conduct heat. Copper conducts heat. Ask Paul Revere in his cookware. You shall make the chapter 27, verse 9. You shall make the enclosure of the tabernacle. On the south side, 100 cubits of hangings of fine twisted linen for the length of the enclosure on that side. With its 20 posts and their 20 sockets of copper, the hooks and bands of the posts be of silver. Again, 100 cubits of hangings for its length along the north side, with its 20 posts and their 20 sockets of copper, the hooks and bands of the posts to be of silver. For the width of the enclosure on the west side, 50 cubits of hangings, with their 10 posts and their 10 sockets. For the width of the enclosure on the front or east side, 50 cubits. 15 cubits of hangings on one flank, and their 3 posts and their 3 sockets. 15 cubits of hanging on the other flank, with their 3 posts and their 3 sockets. And for the gate of the enclosure, a screen of 20 cubits, of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and fine twisted linen, done in embroidery, with their 4 posts and their 4 sockets. All the posts round the enclosure shall be banded with silver, and their hooks shall be of silver. Their sockets shall be of copper. The length of the enclosure shall be 100 cubits, and the width 50 throughout, and the height 5 cubits, with hangings of fine twisted linen. The sockets shall be of copper. All of the utensils of the tabernacle, for all the services, as well as all the pegs and all the pegs of the court, shall be of copper. Wow. You talk about getting into the weeds. Okay, let me at least put it into things that we understand. The tabernacle is going to be 45 feet long, 15 feet wide, and 36 feet high. The Holy of Holies is 15 by 15 by 15. Not that large. 15 feet by 15 feet by 15 feet. 3 yards. Not big. So what's all this about? This is also by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. The Torah describes two acts of creation: God's creation of the universe and the Israelites' creation of the Mikdash, or Mishkan, the sanctuary that traveled in the desert, the prototype of the temple in Jerusalem. The connection between them is not incidental. As a number of commentators have noted, the Torah invokes a series of verbal parallels between them. The effect is unmistakable. The latter mirrors the former. As God made the universe, so he instructed the Israelites to make the Mishkan. It is their first great constructive and collaborative act after crossing the Red Sea, leaving the domain of Egypt and entering their new domain as the people of God. Just as the act of the universe begins with the act of creation, so Jewish history, the history of a redeemed people, begins with an act of creation. The universe, Genesis; the Mishkan, Exodus. In the universe, it says, and God made the sky. The Mishkan, it says, they shall make me a sanctuary. The universe, it says, the God made two large lights. The Mishkan, it says, they shall make an ark. In the Genesis, it says, and God made the beasts of the earth. The Mishkan, God make a table. The universe, and God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. The Mishkan, Moses saw all the skilled work, and beheld they had done it. As God had commanded it, they had done it. The universe, the heavens and earth, and all their array was completed. The Mishkan, all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting was completed. The universe, Genesis, and God completed all the work that he had done. The Mishkan, Exodus, and Moses completed the work. The universe, Genesis, and God blessed. The Mishkan, and Moses blessed. Genesis, and sanctified it. Exodus, and you shall sanctify it and all its vessels. The key words, make, see, complete, bless, sanctify, work, behold, are the same in both narratives. The effect is to suggest that the making of the Mishkan was for the Israelites what creating the universe was for God. What does that mean? Well, let me read on. Yet the disparity is extraordinary. The creation of the universe takes a mere 34 verses. The making of the Mishkan takes hundreds of verses, almost 4 chapters. Considerably more than 10 times as long. Why? The universe is vast. The sanctuary was small, a modest construction of poles and drapes that could be dismantled and carried from place to place as the Israelites journeyed through the wilderness. Given that the length of any passage in the Torah is a guide to the significance it attaches to an episode of law, why devote so much time and space to the tabernacle? The answer is profound. The Torah is not man's book of God. It is God's book of mankind. It is not difficult for an infinite, omnipotent creature to make home for humanity. What is difficult is for human beings, in their finitude and vulnerability, to make a home for God. Yet that is the purpose, not only of the Mishkan in particular, but of the Torah as a whole. I have a couple more. The Torah tells us precisely what gifts the people are to bring: gold and silver and copper and blue and purple and crimson and more. These are the gifts. Let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell upon them. These are the gifts, and this is how you shall make it, exactly as I show you. As we contemplate in this instruction in our homes and our synagogues, we think about bringing our gifts and hope that God will dwell among us. But what gifts do we bring? Ours are not made of colorful yarns or tan skins or acacia wood. What exactly is expected of us, whose hearts are so moved? I sometimes wonder where the Israelites got all that stuff in the wilderness. I picture them carrying their backpacks, along with granola bars and first aid kits and sunscreen for their 40-year hike in the Sinai. I imagine their moms saying, "Just pack it, trust me, you might need it along the way, you never know." How do you know what to pack for a journey into the unknown? And how do we know what gifts to bring to create a place for God to dwell? What's the answer to that? The answer to that is simple. You can only bring what you have. but bring what you have. There is other midrash that say God would not have created you if he didn't need you. He also needs from you what you bring. You are unique. You bring something unique to Judaism and to the world. God's expectation is that you will bring that. And by bringing that to Judaism, to the world, you are also bringing it to him. Very important analogy there. Our responsibility is to open ourselves to allusions to higher things and thereby to uncover layers of relevance. Through such a technique, one discovers that this parsha concerns itself with the future. It is once a lesson in giving and in selflessness. To make a gift, or in more sacred language, to give tzedakah, literally involves an act of lifting one's eyes and heart higher. One must become selfless, transcending oneself and envisioning a reality of tikkun olam. This is precisely what God demands of the Israelites in this parsha. They must set their sights higher, and doing so will not only elevate their own souls, but more important, will bring God's presence into their midst. So we're giving tzedakah. We're giving charity. It was, I don't remember who it was, that had 9 layers of charity. And the best charity was that which you and the person receiving the charity did not realize they were both giving and taking it. So when the Israelites are giving and making and putting this tabernacle together, all they're doing is working. They're putting it together, they're sweating, they're in the desert. They're working feverishly every day to put this together. They are making an effort, and in doing so, they are becoming a people. And in becoming a people, they are doing God's work. This is both charity and healing the world. So they're doing all these things without the knowledge, the knowledge of doing it, but within the knowledge of getting it done. Moshe David Umberto Cassuto, late professor of Bible at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, says, in order to understand the significance and purpose of the tabernacle, we must realize that the children of Israel, after they had been privileged to witness the revelation of God on Mount Sinai, were about to journey from there and thus draw away from the sight of God. So long as they were encamped in the place, they were conscious of God's nearness. But once they set out on their journey, it seemed to them as though the link had been broken, unless there was in their midst a tangible symbol of God's presence among them. It was the function of the tabernacle, literally dwelling, to serve as such a symbol. Not without reason, therefore, does this section come immediately after the section that describes the making of the covenant of Mount Sinai. The nexus between Israel and the tabernacle is a perpetual extension of the bond that was forged at Sinai between the people and their God. The children of Israel, dwelling in tribal order at every encampment, are able to see from every side the tabernacle standing in the midst of the camp, and the visible presence of the sanctuary proves to them that just as the glory of the Lord dwelt on Mount Sinai, so he dwells in their midst whenever they wander in the wilderness. That's what we discussed, that it's a visual manifestation of God for them. Whether he's there or not there, he's everywhere. But this is for the people of Israel. 12 weeks out of being slaves, who now can know that God is close to them forever. As long as they have the tabernacle, he is close to them. They have seen what he does. They've seen the plagues. They've seen the Red Sea. They've seen all the big stuff. Now they have an everyday touchstone, a physical presence that they can use to bring them closer to God. Another sage writes, "The temple is not a glorified granny flat. It is not a home away from home for God. Obviously so. God does not need us to build him a place to reside in the world. He already resides everywhere. On a deeper level, though, the Torah is saying that the temple is not somewhere where we can put God out of the way. It would be all too easy to build a temple in order that God can reside within it. It would be very convenient to compartmentalize God. Let me put him in the temple, and then there I will worship him, speak to him, and have a relationship with him. But for the rest of my life, I will not." The objective is not to put God in a box, in a tabernacle, but to use the tabernacle to keep God with you every day, all the time. Not to put him in there, but to have him from in there come out to you. Here's another really interesting commentary. God tells the Jewish people, "Don't write your charity checks out to Moses and expect him to go shopping with the money. The tabernacle is your responsibility as much as it is his. Figure out what is needed and bring it." Similarly, when a man who is starving comes to your door, don't give him money and make him go off to buy food. Give him a meal. When a man needs $10,000 for an operation, don't give him $1,000 and send him off to find the rest. Call 9 of your friends and solve the problem. Charity is not just about lightening the burden that another is carrying. It's about taking the burden away. Good thinking. Okay. Lastly, the sequence of portions, Trumah, Tzedvika, Kitesa, Valakea, and Patuki, is puzzling in many ways. First, it outlines the construction of the tabernacle, the portable house of worship the Israelites built and carried with them through the desert, in exhaustive and exhausting detail. The narrative takes almost the whole of the last third of the book of Exodus. Why so long? Why such detail? The tabernacle was, after all, only a temporary home for the divine presence, eventually superseded by the temple in Jerusalem. Besides which, why is the making of the Mishkan in the book of Exodus at all? Its natural place seems to be in the book of Becharia, Leviticus, which is overwhelmingly devoted to an account of the service of the Mishkan and the sacrifices that were offered there. The book of Exodus, by contrast, could be subtitled The Birth of a Nation. It is about the transition of the Israelites from a family to a people and their journey from slavery to freedom. It rises to a climax with the covenant made between God and the people at Mount Sinai. What has the tabernacle to do with this? It seems an odd way to end the book. The answer could be profound. First, recall the history of the Israelites until now. It has been a long series of complaints. They complained when the first intervention of Moses made their situation worse. Then at the Red Sea they said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than die in the desert." After crossing the sea, they continued to complain. First about the lack of water, then the water was bitter, then the lack of food, then the lack of water again. Then within weeks of the revelation at Sinai, the only time in history God appeared to an entire nation, they made the golden calf. If an unprecedented sequence of miracles cannot bring about a mature response on the part of people, what will? It is then that God said, "Let them build something together." This simple command transformed the Israelites. During the whole construction of the tabernacle, there were no complaints. The people contributed, some gold, some silver, some bronze, some brought skins and drapes, others gave their time and skill. They gave us so much that Moses had to order them to stop. A remarkable proposition is being framed. It is not what God does for us that transforms us. It is what we do for God. And that is this week's portion. That's a good way to end it. It is not what God does for us that transforms us. It is what we do for God. I will see you next Wednesday. Have a good week. Have a good Shabbat.